Today, we're diving deep into the world of tweakments with the amazing Alice Hart-Davis. As an award-winning journalist and founder of the Tweakments Guide, Alice has tried and tested countless cosmetic treatments and skincare products over the last 20 years. With her extensive knowledge and insider access to the best practitioners and products in the industry, Alice is here to reveal everything you need to know about non-invasive treatments and trusted cosmetic solutions. Whether you're approaching midlife, experiencing skin concerns associated with menopause or perimenopause, or just curious about the latest beauty trends, you won't want to miss this episode. Hello, Alice, and welcome to Unpause the Menopause. I'm absolutely delighted to be chatting to you in person.
Well, hi, Morgan. Thank you so much for inviting me on.
I've been stalking you for about 2 months now and watching you on Instagram. So it's been absolutely great following your journey and following all the different treatments that you do. I am interested in how you normally start your day. Do you have a specific routine?
I have an idea of a routine that I'd like to have, so perhaps I should tell you about that, because obviously it falls off from time to time. I am not always the model of what I said how to do, but this morning I did manage to roll out of bed when I woke up rather than reaching for my phone and Instagram, and sit on my meditation cushion and meditate, not for very long, using an app with a nice bit of sound. I then managed to do a yoga class online. I didn't get as far as the studio, but I did. So movement, meditation and movement, a cold shower, just because I hate it, but it wakes me up and I feel better afterwards. Nice cup of green tea, might reward myself with 15 minutes of reading the papers, and then to my desk. So yeah, trying to, mobilizing, movement, the fancy name often for just getting moving, because I'm not in my first youth anymore. So if I don't do a certain amount of shoulder rolling, hip stretching, all the rest of it, the day is not so easy and it stacks up over time. So that's a rather long answer, but there you go.
You surprised me with your answer, because I thought it'd be all about skincare.
Oh, I see. Oh, the skincare, of course. The skincare after the cold shower, there will be an antioxidant cream or gel, so vitamin C or other bunch of antioxidants, because they are very good for strengthening the skin and sort of defending it against environmental aggression, for which read UV light or wind or rain or whatever. I cycle to get around, so I do occasionally meet more of that than the average office worker. And sunscreen, absolutely, sunscreen all day, every day. It is the single most effective thing any of us can do to help our skin right now and from future damage, because UV light, just boring old daylight, it hasn't got to be sunshine, it hasn't got to be strong holiday sunshine. Boring old daylight starts to break down the collagen in the skin and just accelerate the aging processes that are going on. So putting on sunscreen is a routine habit, especially if you work near a window or going to be outside, and on your neck and on your hands is really crucial. And I take a bunch of supplements. Yeah.
That's interesting. Even if you work next to a window, then you're saying you don't need to just be outside.
No, because UVB is the one people know about. Those are like the burning rays that you get in hot summer sunshine, and you get far more of them the closer you get to the equator. And so you go abroad on your hot summer holiday, and you have a lot of burning sun, stronger than we'll have here. But UVA, it's a longer wavelength, and that is present in daylight all year. Obviously more intense at some times a year than others, but that goes through glass as well. So if you're in the car, it's going to get you. If you're sitting by a window, I am the sort of sad creature that has this kind of, I don't think you can see it without me pulling it off the window, but these UV mesh kind of blinds here, just as a general thing for when it's too bright, because then I don't have to drop the blinds completely, just to take down the levels of it, because the damage it does is very small. And people say, well, we know generations of people who've lived without sunscreen, but the damage stacks up incrementally, day by day, year by year. That's what, by the time we get to our 60s, will give us sunspots on the back of our hands, will contribute to the breakdown of collagen and wrinkling. We know perfectly well the areas that just don't see the sun, like our backsides or whatever, are super smooth and lily white and are not crepey and wrinkled in the way that bits of us, like our sort of upper chest bit here, that is perfectly positioned to catch all the rays, but if we're wearing a t-shirt, because it's like tip tilted up to the sun, like our own little solar panel. So yeah, you want to protect that.
That's a whole new world to me. I had never even heard of the UV mesh or anything. I'm interested to hear about your journey because I understand, and correct me if I got this wrong, that you studied modern history at Oxford.
Yes,
Yeah.
which didn't equip me for very much.
And then you went into journalism. And then did you suddenly find yourself in the beauty industry after that?
I went into journalism. I'd had an intern job at Vogue during my uni holidays, and they rang up and said, "Oh, are you free? Do come back." When I left, and I thought, "Oh, don't mind if I do." And so that was very much making the coffee and doing the photocopying for a while. But it became a proper job after a few months, and then the department I was in, the guys in there launched off to Fleet Street and kept saying it's much better over here. So I went to the Telegraph and did a variety of jobs there, but it was all features jobs. So it was writing about very important subjects like shopping and trends and stuff like that. So I never actually got into beauty. So I left college in 85 and I didn't get into writing about beauty till the late 90s. So it's only been the past 25 years that I've been looking at beauty stuff. And that was because I'd started writing at a different newspaper a lot about health. I'd done a fair bit about wellness over time. And health is great, but it can be a bit of a heart sink, because it's all bad backs and ingrown toenails and what can you do? And a colleague of mine, this was at the Evening Standard, she got all the press releases and things from the beauty companies about their products. And back in the day, then this was 98, 99, there really wasn't any beauty coverage in the newspapers. It was only for magazines, but PRs would still send things to journalists on the newspapers just in case. And whenever she did get a piece into the paper about one of these things, they'd send her flowers, they'd take her out for lunch. And I thought, oh, that looks
much
all
more
right.
Glamorous. Yeah.
So when she left, and she was freelance, so she wasn't replaced, and the post room said, "To whom shall we give all these parcels and post that's coming in?" I said, "Oh, it's all right, guys. I'll deal with it."
You take one for the team.
Because I thought it was just all fluffy stuff, all powder and paint and whatever. But it was just at the time when skincare was starting to have a real anti-aging slant. I know we're not keen on the term anti-aging now, but it's a useful shorthand for sort of all of that. And I'd go to the feature session and I'd say, "Look, this thing, it's got these molecules in it which do whatever, and they say they've got scientific proof that it works." She said, "Well, go off and find out about it." So, and at that time, cosmetic procedures were just sort of starting, or they were quite underground in London. We're not underground literally, but there were very few dermatologists, doctors, laser specialists offering injectable collagen was the only kind of filler around, and toxin, Botox, being used off label, as in it's a medical prescription product for other sort of things like eye spasms, but they were using it for wrinkles already, and lasers. And the features editor, she wanted to know about all these things. Who are these people? What are they doing? So I moved into writing about those kind of things more and more. It's completely fascinating. It became a specialty. I didn't think there would be much future in it because I was coming up for 40 then. And as far as I could see on magazines, they got rid of their beauty editors when they turned 40. But what do you know? There's much more appetite for older people writing about these things now. So I've happily gone on writing about beauty, learning more about tweakments, and there never used to be much call for writing about tweakments in the papers because it's such a niche thing and people are a bit scared of it. But they did used to like it when I'd go and try some weird looking procedure. So I've been very open about what I've tried and reporting on that from the start.
But I think still there's a bit of a taboo around having tweakments and cosmetic procedures. And it's quite interesting. And it's all about, it's almost like a denial that we're aging. And we sort of, a lot of women will not talk about it. And I love that you've been so open about it. So on your Instagram, for example, you will take us into the room with you and you'll show us what procedure you're having and how it works and if it's sore and all that kind of stuff. And I think it's really interesting to do that. And it's kind of debunking the myth. And I think maybe we should be talking about it much more. And and just be open about it, like we are now about the fact that we dye our hair or whatever.
Completely. And it's so fab that you will invite me onto a podcast like this to talk about it, because as you say, it has been very stigmatized over time. And there is, I always think there's a spectrum of what's acceptable cosmetically. So like, yeah, starting off with skincare, no one criticizes anyone for using skincare or makeup, except in rare circumstances now. But we used to all lie about our highlights. Oh no, I've just been in the sun. This is all natural. And then there's cosmetic dentistry, which, you know, used to be only something the Americans would do, and now it's absolutely everywhere. You know, every Love Islander is promoting something new for your teeth. And then there are the sort of advanced facials, so facials with a little bit of radio frequency. That's all fine, and maybe even light-based treatments like lasers or intense pulse light for zapping age spots. Celebs will talk about those sometimes as a sort of positive, beneficial thing. But I think it's when you get to the needles, because then you get into treatments delivered with needles, which might make you look weird. And for most people, there's quite a hard stop around that. And then there's cosmetic surgery way down the other end of the line, which is somewhere that most people wouldn't even think of going for all sorts of reasons beside the expense and the downtime and everything. But yeah, it's so interesting around the treatments, because the whole industry has boomed massively, particularly in the last 10 years. So more people know about it, but because it's unregulated, shockingly unregulated, there's an awful lot of people offering these procedures who shouldn't be. That means there's an awful lot of bad work out there by people who aren't trained, who aren't in any way regulated. The rest of us notice all the bad work, and it's very easy then to think this stuff is awful, this stuff always makes you look weird, when in fact there's a parallel universe of really good work going on, being done by brilliant practitioners, the sort of people I've been lucky enough to work with over the past 25 years. And what I'm trying to do with the Tweakments Guide is show people, you know, what this stuff is, explain how it works and what it could be like to have it done. Tell them the pros and cons. So it's independent advice, and then point them towards practitioners who I would trust with my own face. Therefore, they can trust them because they are the sort of people who have medical training, who have specialist training in aesthetics. They're hugely experienced. They have an artistic eye. They know what a complication is, and they know what to do if it happens. So putting people into safe hands and all around the country, because there are loads of good people, but back to the stigma, it's very much there, and it stops people from being open about it, and it stops all the people who do a lot of it, like, you know, celebs and actors and whoever, you know, if only they would be more frank about what they have done. We usually only hear from the people who haven't done any or who've given it up for some reason, and then it's like some weird kind of virtue signaling. I did that stuff, I know it was bad, and now I'm a better person because I don't do it. You know, it that shouldn't be what it's about, but it is still stigmatized, and there's a lot to do to get past that.
But you're opening up that stigma, and that's what's so amazing about it. And I think it's a lot of women our age that are going for these kind of tweakments as well. And maybe we can just explain to the listeners, what do you mean by a tweakment rather than a treatment?
Sure. It's a cosmetic medical procedure. These things have a cosmetic effect, but they are at base medical procedures. So they are things like Botox. It's a kind of botulinum toxin. So those are wrinkle relaxing injections made from a very deadly poison, or fillers, dermal fillers, which can give back volume to the face or structure, or lasers, or chemical peels, or a lot of these other energy treatments like radio frequency or ultrasound, all of which have a role in tightening and strengthening the skin. What each of those procedures does is sort of super specialized. So I think that's another thing that makes it really hard for people to get their heads around it. But yeah, tweakments, it's a great word. The only thing I worry about with it is it almost makes it sound like these things are cozy and convenient, because there's a substantial chunk in society who start to think these things are in fact beauty treatments, which is why, and they're not, and which is why I'm always at pains to say how they are cosmetic medical procedures, and they need to be taken seriously because things can go wrong. And if you're in the right hands, and I also worry that when on my Instagram I rush off, and on my stories maybe I'm just saying, oh, I'm here with so and so, and we do a quick bit of this or that, and it starts to look like I'm taking these things very casually. That's probably only because I know the practitioner pretty well. I've done this thing a lot of times. I have immense confidence in them and what's going on. But even with all the things I've tried over the years, when I go to somebody new for some new procedure, there is still that moment where I think, is this the one that leaves me looking like I need to wear a paper bag on my head for the rest of my days? So I totally understand for everybody out there how difficult it is to, even if you're curious and motivated to try one of these things, to get yourself into a clinic, make that appointment, get on the bed, have the treatment. It's not a simple thing, and I don't take it as lightly as it might sometimes look that I do.
No, but I think that's what's so great about the tweakments guide, isn't it? Because it may be something that you don't want to talk about with your friends or your peer group, but actually when you're looking for somebody not even regulated, but reputable in the industry, because understanding that it's not regulated industry, and that's what the guide's all about, isn't it?
Sure. And just how to navigate your way through this, the kind of things to look for. And the difficulty is that these things tend to be expensive, and the better known practitioners who have premises in fancy parts of London or Manchester or Glasgow or wherever, they are more expensive. There'll always be somebody cheaper down the road. I get an awful lot of questions saying, oh, there's somebody new in my area who's offering whatever for 100 quid. And I say, just no. And they'll say, but if it's toxin and I know the pattern that my normal injector would put it in, you think this is not a paint by numbers thing. You need somebody to look very carefully at your face and see how your own face moves, and therefore where they could put that toxin for the effect you're after. Because I also get a lot of questions saying, I'm never doing toxin again because it dropped my brows, so it's a horrible treatment. You think, no, you had a rubbish injector. They were just injecting the pattern that they'd been taught to do. They didn't actually stop and consider that you don't use, or they over-treated with the muscles that lift up rather than, because all our muscles are in opposing pairs. So they're either lifting up or pulling down, or one way or the other. So if you reduce the effect of one a bit, then you'll get movement in that direction. If something goes wrong, it's invariably the practitioner, not the product, that is at fault, whether it's an injectable or a device. And good people don't come cheap, and it can become very expensive. Not just sort of to go to, if you've had filler and it's all in the wrong places or it's gone lumpy, you need to go and get it dissolved and redone by somebody good. That's expensive. But there's also the emotional cost of having to go around looking bizarre with the...
Yeah, and we don't have face masks anymore for the pandemic to hide behind.
No, those were so handy.
That was it. And what have you noticed about your skin as you've entered perimenopause and perhaps menopause? Has it changed a lot?
Yeah, no, not that much, but I've been really lucky in that I picked up on the perimenopausal symptoms really early on, just because of the field I'm in. And so I've been on hormone replacement of one sort or other from the very beginning of the journey. So, and I can't believe how lucky I was, because that was, 12, 14 years ago. And
you were ahead of the game, really.
If you catch it before it's deteriorated too bad, but I know full well what happens. And, to a certain extent, obviously that is going on my own skin. My skin is not perfect. On a really good day, I can kid a Visia machine, which looks at the surface images and rates your true skin age versus your biological age. On a good day, I can look 10 years younger than I am to that machine. But, it's not like I look like I'm 35 or anything. But what happens, as we lose the hormones, particularly estrogen, so it's once you're moving from perimenopause towards menopause and the estrogen levels start to drop, a lot faster than they were before. Well, once you hit menopause, it's like it runs into a brick wall if you look at the graph and not having the estrogen, you can't can't make so much collagen in your skin, so your skin becomes less firm, it becomes more fragile, it becomes more susceptible to ultraviolet damage. It can't hold on to water in the way it used to, so it becomes drier, the skin barrier isn't so good. So all those things are going on, which are not great. So in terms of skincare, once you see these things starting to happen, or preferably before, you want to keep up with that skincare regime, which really from your 20s, you should be using an antioxidant like a vitamin C serum in the mornings and sunscreen, and a retinoid at night. That's something with retinol or retinal, or if you're super hardcore, by the time you get a bit older, you can move on to prescription retinoic acid, tretinoin, because that it stimulates skin cell turnover. That often alarms people because they think, what if cells are cancerous? But what retinoids are really doing is normalizing skin function. So if you're young and you have oily, acnified skin, they slow down the oil production. So it's helpful there. A lot of people who get put onto retinols and things as teenagers with oily skin can then just carry on using them through their 20s and onwards. So 30s, you want a bit more of a stronger retinol. You might want to add in some, I don't know, peptides for a bit of fun, or moisturizer if your skin is dry. I mean, moisturizer as appropriate, any at any point.
I've been using one of the retinols that you recommended on Instagram, and I was actually saying to my husband yesterday, my skin feels so lovely and soft, and it's just gorgeous. So I think you said it was a new delivery system or a new kind of retinol, and I thought I'd try it.
Okay, because what it's doing is just stimulating your skin to work like it used to. So when the skin cell turnover starts slowing down as we move through our 30s, 40s, 50s, it will just nudge it and G it back up, and it will make it a bit stronger, and it will help it to hold on to moisture better. So, and you also want to look at the lipid barrier, which is like the sort of the film on top of the skin that helps hold the moisture in place. So maybe you want to moisturize with more ceramides in it. That's really good for rebuilding the lipid barrier. And in between and underneath, sorry, I'm talking rather in a random way, but so by the time if you're finding your skin is getting drier and wrinklier, you might want, in the mornings as well as an antioxidant, you might want a hydrating serum to pack moisture down into the cells. You might want to seal that in with a moisturizer before you go to your sunscreen. If this all sounds too much, just wear a moisturizing sunscreen, that's fab. And then in the evening, you want to wear your retinol or other retinoid, and you can put moisturizer over that. You can sandwich it into the moisturizer. Retinol is quite strong stuff, so you need to acclimatize your skin to it. When you were using it, did you just jump straight in, or did you do it properly and do it just 2 nights a week at first? And
no, I jumped straight in.
I'm brave. Okay. Well, if it should say on every pack, start slowly and build up, because we have receptors in our skin for retinoic acid, which is the strongest form in the kind of family tree of retinol. Retinol has to convert into retinoic acid. It takes a couple of steps to do that. Retinal, it only takes 1 step. So, and when your receptors get overloaded and it's all too much, that's when the skin can get a bit dry and red. A lot of people say, I tried retinol, it was all too much. I think, well, you just then need to go more slowly and dilute it in moisturizer so it spreads really thinly around the face and gradually build up, because gradually you will grow more retinoid receptors in your skin, and then you can tolerate higher doses of it. So that way,
it was red for the first couple of days, so that makes sense.
Well, it also depends who you talk to, because I snagged half an hour with Dr. Zainab Aji last week, who is a very famous name in the skincare world, and he he has a rather different approach. He thinks moisturizer and cream of every sort is rubbish. It's like, it makes our skin soft and useless, and it's like eating cake every day, he says, because putting moisturizer on stops our skin from producing its own natural moisturizing factors, which our skin does do. And as kids, our skin is fine, and we aren't putting creams on it the whole time. But so there's a kind of either or. Either you've gone down the moisturizer route, or you could stop and go wholesale over to Dr. Rabaji's idea, which is just to stimulate the skin massively with antioxidants, and particularly with retinoids, probably a bit of glycolic acid somewhere along the way. And he said you will go through a month of awful peeling and redness, and then you'll burst into the sunlit uplands of it all being lovely and smooth. But I tend to think it's not necessary to go through all of that, but you can talk to skincare professionals, and they'll all have different systems and ideas on this till you're blue in the face, and they can't all be right at the same time. So the thing is to find whatever it is that works for you and your budget and your tolerance of faffing around with skin in the bathroom, and how your face feels and looks with it. But I'm so glad that you found a product that is helpful, because that's really good.
No, it's brilliant. I love it.